This is Desert Homestead Prepping. Make sure to like and subscribe and hit that bell for notifications.
All right, welcome back. When it comes to being prepared, I think it's important to think about many different possibilities of scenarios that could happen. One of those scenarios is an EMP attack or a CME, which is a solar storm. So with that said, I figured maybe I would go over my idea of what I thought would be the best EMP proof vehicle. So we have here what I think is probably the best vehicle that you could have for an EMP or a solar storm. And this is an older IDI or indirect injected diesel truck. This one is a 7.3, and everything on this is mechanical. It's a mechanical fuel pump, it's a mechanical injector pump, and so it does not require a spark for ignition, works off of compression. So therefore, without any electricity, this vehicle will run. Now, there are a few things on it that are required to actually get the thing starting. So in the winter months, when it's cold, it has glow plugs that require electricity in order to heat up the manifold to get the thing started. And then, of course, you have your starter, which takes electricity to be able to crank the engine to get it started. So one way that you can deal with the cold weather starts is to make sure that your vehicle is plugged in so that the block is already warmed up, so that if, say, something like that did happen, you could start the vehicle by push starting it. And that is the other feature of this particular vehicle that's very important, is that it is a stick shift. And so it doesn't have any solenoids or anything in the transmission that's going to mess with your ability to be able to shift gears, and also then you can actually push start it. So when I bought this truck, I was not thinking of an EMP proof vehicle. I only bought this truck because it's strong. It's got a good reputation of being a very reliable vehicle. It's not pretty. It's older. It's kind of beat up. But I bought this truck for work, and I didn't want a sissy new truck that I was afraid to scratch. I wanted an older truck that I didn't have to worry about actually putting it to work. But as time went by, I started really thinking about what this truck is and what it has. Kind of looking into it, I realized, wow, you know what? This is actually a very good vehicle to have if we did have a solar storm. And so when it comes to EMPs or solar storms and trying to have a vehicle that's going to be able to withstand that kind of stuff, I mean, there's theories out there. Nobody's actually been through that in our modern times to know for sure what is going to work or what's not going to work, how that scenario is going to play out in our society. So all we have is theories. And so basically, this is my theory of what I think is going to be the best option for that kind of situation. So with this truck, though, there is one other thing that is vitally important to be able to deal with in order to get it to run with no electricity. And that is that it has a fuel cutoff switch. And that fuel cutoff switch is a solenoid within the injector pump. And so like I said before, there's a mechanical fuel pump. Once you actually get the engine starting to turn over, it will pump that fuel into the injector pump. So there is a solenoid within that injector pump that requires electricity for it to pull a lever back that will allow the fuel to flow into that injector pump. So with that said, we'll pop the hood here. I'll show you where the injector pump is, and we'll kind of go over what you would have to do in order to bypass that solenoid and actually get this thing to run with zero electricity. All right, so with the hood popped here, you can see that this one has an add-on turbo, which is, you know, it's all mechanical as well, not a big deal. But most indirect injected vehicles, or of this year and this type, will have an intake manifold with an air filter that's covering this. But this right here is your injector pump. And right underneath this cap right here is the solenoid. In fact, this wire right here is what goes to that. And so what you need to do is actually hold that solenoid engaged back in place. So what this solenoid is doing when the vehicle is off is it is disengaged, it is out, and it is holding that metering valve closed. So that metering valve cannot open and adjust according to the movements of your pedal. And so when it's off, that solenoid is extended and that lever is pushing that metering valve shut. And what it does when you turn on the ignition is it pulls that lever back out of the way so that that metering valve can adjust according to the gas pedal and what you need. So all you got to do is simply either jam something against that lever that's on the solenoid so that it's forced to hold back, or you can wire the solenoid lever so that it's pulled back and out of the way. And so when you put this back in place, you just want to make sure that it is still behind the tab on that metering valve, because you don't want the metering valve to be back behind the tab, because then it will be forced open full throttle. And when you start this sucker, it will just be full throttle, and that's not good. So that's it. You just want to have that solenoid wired back so that that tab is out of the way. After that, you know, you stick the cap back on there, and then the vehicle will be able to run just as normal as if you'd had power go into that solenoid. Now, I did see a YouTube video of a guy who was talking about some issues that he had with his injector pump. It had nothing to do with, you know, CMEs or EMPs. It was just his situation where that solenoid had failed and he was off out in the middle of nowhere, and he actually pulled the cap off of this and stuck a nickel down there to hold that mechanism open. And he was able to put the cap back on, start the vehicle, and drive it until he could get it home and replace that solenoid. So now, of course, once you've bypassed that fuel cutoff switch, you're not going to be able to shut off your vehicle. Once you get it running, it's not going to shut off. You turn off the key or anything, because now it has been jammed open. So the way that you're going to have to shut the vehicle off is you're obviously going to have to, you know, kill the engine by maybe putting it in fifth or fourth gear and popping the clutch, and that'll stop the engine. So, you know, those are the three things that you would have to worry about if you had no electricity for this. And after that, you would have a vehicle that you would be able to use while everybody else is really walking around. Now, don't get me wrong, in a CME situation or an EMP where everything's down and there's pure chaos, I'm sure the last thing you're going to do is be like, hey, well, give me just a second. Let me grab my toolbox and I'm going to work on this and get this running. I'm sure you're going to be grabbing your bug out bags and really heading off to your bug out location. But at least now you know of an option of what you could do later on, where maybe you could come back, have some time to work on the vehicle, be able to take some time to be able to do those things that I talked about, to be able to get the vehicle running. And then you would have an option for the future of your family and your group. So, let me know what you guys think. Do you have any other vehicles that you can think of that might be EMP proof that would work well in that kind of situation? I know that there's more than just this one that actually has those features. In fact, I got another truck over here that's not too pretty. This is a GMC 6.2 diesel, and it also has the same mechanical fuel pump in this, although this one's new enough that it has an electric boost pump. So this vehicle, the older ones that have the mechanical fuel pump, the boost pump, and the mechanical injector pumps will work the same way. So if I remember right, the 7.3 IDI, 6.9 for the Ford, and then for the Chevy, you have the 6.2 diesel that has those same features. And so you should be able to manipulate that mechanical fuel pump to make that vehicle run for you. Now, I've heard some old stories about how farmers used to be able to get their diesel tractors warmed up and how they would park it over the compost pile where it was warm, or else they would be able to get a fire with some rocks and get those rocks all warm. And then they would be able to get those hot rocks and put them under the vehicle. And, so that's something that I've thought about, which would probably be the most difficult thing to overcome, is in the winter times, how to get the vehicle to start when it's cold. In the summer, it's always pretty well warm. I don't even have to worry about the glow plugs or having these vehicles plugged in to be able to turn them right over. So I guess if we're going to have a CME, it better be warm outside, or else I'm not going to have a vehicle. All right, well, that's all that I got for this video. You guys drop some comments down below. Let me know what you think. Tell me about your ideas, what you think would be a good EMP-proof vehicle, and let me know, why you think that would be a good one. Let's kind of share some information, and maybe people can learn from the comments. All right, thanks. You guys have a good one.